Thank you for joining us for another Psyche Innovations webinar. I'll give everyone a few seconds to pile in as we start. But yes, our topic today is lead human, stay human, building mental wealth cultures in 2026. So thank you all for joining us. As always, if you have questions as we're going, please put them in the chat. We'll try to respond to them, or as many of them as we can during the session. And if we can't get to them in the session, then we will respond afterwards. Right, so jumping right in. Thank you, Anthony, for being here.
Awesome.
So, Anthony, who is Anthony? Anthony brings over 22 years of experience in learning and development, specializing in transformational leadership, culture, and skills development across industries, including retail, finance, and education. His work is grounded in the belief that powerful learning happens when people feel safe, seen, and valued. A sought-after facilitator and accredited Enneagram practitioner, Anthony has led hundreds of impactful sessions, helping individuals and teams build self-awareness, empathy, and authentic connection. Empathy is going to show up a lot tonight. He has designed leadership programs across all levels, implemented enterprise-wide learning strategies, and spoken at national leadership and OD conferences. Known for his engaging and... Say again?
Sounds awesome.
I mean, there's more. So he's known for his engaging and human approach. As you can clearly see, Anthony creates learning experiences that shift mindsets, energize teams, and drive real organizational impact. Lead human, see human, stay human. Thank you, Anthony, for being here.
Cool. Glad to be here.
Awesome. For those of you who don't know me, I'm obviously Daniel. I'm the founder and CEO of Psyche Innovations. My background is in research psychology, the nonprofit space, psychological skills interventions, and now obviously Psyche Innovations. So before we jump into the topic, who is Psyche Innovations and what do we do? We're a well-being, wellness, mental health company that essentially does two core things. We provide human services through psychological skills training. We do custom and mental health focused workshops, and we provide counseling services. And then we also have our tech services, which is primarily through the Psyche mental health app. We provide these services to a range of organizations, including small teams to large enterprises, and we also have offerings for mental health practitioners. Our app does mental health assessments, it focuses on psychological skills, has an AI companion, and does goal setting. Please go check it out, reach out to us to learn more about what we do. But without further ado, we will jump into our topic for tonight. Right, so I'm going to be asking Anthony a whole bunch of questions, and we're going to sort of have a little bit of a discussion around them. And please feel free to, as I said, in the chat, just post some questions, and we'll see if we can get to them. Right, so we have a few themes that we're doing. Theme one is from doing to being. So the first question I have prepared is, Anthony, one of your core beliefs is that organizations focus too much on doing and not enough on being. For someone listening who's drowning in initiatives, KPIs, and deliverables, what does that actually mean? Paint a picture for us, please.
I was thinking about this. If I was back in my early 20s, I probably wouldn't get what Anthony's trying to say, because doing is what you do. You know, you're trying to build that career, you're trying to work yourself up, you know, the corporate ladder, and so you do. And if you think about it, the society that we live in, even all the way back from the Industrial Revolution, from when it started, it just rewarded people doing things, you know, being in the work houses, you know, being on the factory floor, just do, and it's all about the output. And now it just seems more formal with a suit and tie. But I think the question that you just need to ask yourself is, at the end of the day, even those that are on the call now with us, to sit and pause and actually close your eyes and actually just ask yourself, what did I do today? What did I accomplish? And if you not only just feel physically tired, but emotionally tired, then you know the doing is too much and it could potentially be leading towards burnout. So it's just really just being able to reflect on your day. And so many of us don't. We go through the day, we get home, we do homework with the kids, we prepare supper, we veg on the couch with Netflix. You know, we fall asleep during, you know, maybe the best season or series that we're watching. And then we just do the cycle all over again. And I think sometimes what happens depends on what happens in your life. Maybe there could be a death in the family, maybe someone suffering from illness, and almost all of a sudden we get this wake-up call and say, there must be more to life. And even thinking about that, if you guys think back to 6 years ago with COVID, you know, where we had the lockdowns and, you know, family members and friends were passing away from COVID, I think it almost put a peg, you know, in the ground and say, hey guys, there's got to be more to life. So there was a couple of months where things slowed down and people were reflecting on their own lives and their purpose. But what's crazy is we get back into that hamster wheel and people are just doing the same thing over again as if COVID and the lockdowns didn't happen. So, yeah. So please, let's pause. I think that's quite important. Let's slow down.
Yeah, something really connected with me when you were saying that about a death, kind of these big moments making you pause. And that happened to me last year. I unfortunately lost one of my very dear friends super unexpectedly, same age as me. So it really it gripped me. And I realized that life had been on a bit of a hamster wheel. Like I was constantly running faster and faster to try keep up with life and its expectations and my own expectations where I thought I should be in life and what I thought I should have achieved by then, that I was constantly doing. And I like the picture you painted, I was like, damn, that's my life. And I was just exhausted. I was exhausted physically and mentally and emotionally. And I realized I'd hit like a real big low mid last year. And I thought I was doing all the right things to be happy, to be productive, to tick all the boxes. And I remember talking to my father at Father's Day, and I was trying to explain to him that life was feeling like a big to-do list. Like I was having to tick off all these things, like there was something to be achieved in life that would then make me happy. And I had lost the being part, like what it meant to be me that really filled my cup. And it was super hard because it meant I had to start, at least for me in my experience, and I'm curious to hear how you do it, but I had to step back, look at things, build that self-awareness, which, I mean, I run a mental health company, so you think, like I practice it, but it's hard. It's hard. You're constantly trying to like do things in life and fill it with stuff, but it was just do. And I then went, okay, well, what are the important things? How can I build breathing and slowing into my life? And part of it was I went to go speak to a psychologist, and I realized that I felt like I was holding my breath throughout life, like I was bracing for something the whole time.
Yeah.
And I was struggling to actually just be me and be present and enjoy life. And I've now started this process of trying to fix that and not fall back into patterns that weren't healthy and just focusing on doing. But it's hard. It's hard to create those systems or patterns of behavior. Yeah.
And what's interesting, just to add to what you were saying, it's so easy because obviously I've also been in learning and development and run sessions. It's easy to teach the model, but when you have to actually implement it yourself, like you struggle, And so I think, but then once again, it's that whole awareness. But I think also just saying that it's so important to talk. Whether it is with a psychiatrist, with a psychologist, even just with a dear friend over a cup of tea. I like to call them thinking partners. Just someone, they just create that space for you to get all of these things out. And while you are talking, this. It's almost like you see this picture and you're like, I can see what I'm doing. I need to stop doing it, But We get so stuck in the doing, we don't pause so that we can talk about what we've done and how far we've come, what we've achieved, because people are constantly on and it's exhausting. So let's learn to switch off. Yeah, properly.
Yeah, the constantly on thing. I remember reading, somebody made a post on LinkedIn about a community for founders. I can't remember what the group was called or any of that, but she had like a line in there, like a tagline: founders or CEOs or like people who are trying to be very productive are always on. And I was like, oh damn, I felt so attacked and seen. And I was like, yes, I do feel switched on. Like I have to be present, and I have to be like, even now I have to be on, right? I have to focus on what I'm doing, obviously, because I want to, because this is important to me, and that I am being and doing at the same time. I think, I hope. But there's moments where I just want to be, right? And I identified last year that I need to do that. And I completely agree with you. It's simple, what you need to do, but it's hard to do it, Like the concept of eating clean is simple. Mm-hmm. Did I cheat and eat something today that I wasn't supposed to? Yes, I did.
Of course.
So how do leaders like yourself create environments or shift focuses so that people see that this is something that they can do or should do? How do you give them that helping hand to kind of pull them up into this way of thinking?
So I think what's quite important is you should know this as well. Adults have got this need to know mentality. Why must I do something? It sounds like a kid, but what's the benefit that I'm going to get out of it? And I think what happens is we're all exhausted from doing because we're just constantly giving all this energy out, but the energy is seeping out everywhere. We've lost focus. And a very dear friend of mine, Louise Van Rijn, she's been talking a lot about the pause, and she's helping teams learn how to pause. And it's a meeting, it's a team building sort of strat session, but it's actually learning how to have a meeting where we can just be in the room and then reflect back on the work that we've done. But part of that reflection, and it's teaching people the structure, is identifying where does my energy go? And the energy that I'm using, is it landing where it's supposed to? Is it having the impact that we've thought of before we started the initiative? And is it greatest return on investment? But what's quite important is when I talk about the greatest return on investment, I'm not talking just about monetary returns. I'm talking about, does it have the greatest impact on our people? But it's getting people to understand that it's all about pausing and being mindful of where my energy goes. Do it because I don't know how. No one talks about this stuff. You think about our parents. They never taught us about pausing and being, but these are concepts that we pick up as we grow and we interact with other people. But it's just creating a safe space for people to realize there is a new way of not just doing, but a new way of being and seeing it differently. So I think that's quite important. And I think people also need to realize in metaphors and analogies and visual stuff, people are either they're riding on their camel and their camel's is constantly going forward, or they're in their car and they're driving it into the dirt, but they never service their vehicle, or they never put petrol in the car. And that's what being does. It reminds you, wait a minute, you need to refresh yourself. Otherwise, that camel or that vehicle is just not going to go further. But we're pushing it to the limits. And then we realize we wonder and surprised why we are burning out or why other people are leaving. So it's reframing it. What's the benefit that I'm getting out of it? And where's my energy going? Because being is oxygen. And we need to remind ourselves to breathe. So yeah. Hopefully that's
I completely agree.
Yeah. But it's teaching people. I think that's important.
Yeah. I remember a quote that was, it's impossible to smell the roses while galloping on a horse, like riding a horse at full speed. And I love the, stop to smell the roses kind of thought. And something I've started implementing for myself this year, which it's related, is I would move from one task to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next without break. And every minute of every second of every minute of every hour was filled with something. I couldn't not do something. Which sounds toxic. It's not like all work, but like I would move, to the couch and then I'm a reel. And then like I'd go outside and then like I have to fix a sprinkler or something, or I go for a walk to think about a specific thing that I need to, deal with, which is helpful and productive because I'm walking and I'm thinking, whatever, that's fine. But I very rarely just did nothing, to just think, to just be, to just feel how I feel, which sounds so hippy dippy, but it really helps. I've put in like intentional time to, like when I eat, I used to watch something or talk about something. And often now when I have breakfast in the morning, it's in complete silence, which sounds strange. Maybe to a lot of people, they're like, oh, duh, you're just too busy, Daniel. But it really helped me because, okay, I stare out the window and just random thoughts come in and I'm just being myself without a purpose, without something that has to be done. And that was super helpful for me.
And if I can maybe add to it, it's not necessarily even thinking about anything. It's just being in that moment and feeling your physical body in the chair, feeling the sunlight hitting your face or your cheek, perhaps hearing the bird singing outside in the trees. Slowing down intentionally. That's what we need to do. I mean, how often do we walk past trees, but we're so busy walking towards our next meeting, we don't hear the birds singing anymore, But yet the birds are singing, reminding us that life is carrying on whether we are busy or not. So yeah.
I think that answers one of the questions that popped up here, which is, thank you very much for the question. It says, what would being look like? Is it doing nothing and resting? Would gardening, for example, be being that you're referring to? Is it going that's not energy consumed? Can you elaborate more on this?
Do not.
I like what you said was the intentional, being intentional. That word stuck up for me when you were talking.
And I think, just immediately, I was also, while you were reading out the question, I immediately just thought, it's also being in the moment and doing things that give you joy. Anything that is going to lighten your spirit, make you smile. It could be as simple as sitting on the couch, playing with your kids, and hearing that laughter. It could be as simple as sitting at the counter, sipping your first cup of coffee. It's anything that reminds you that I always love the saying, we've become human doings, we've forgotten to be human beings. And it's anything that I can do that's going to remind me I'm a human being and I'm having this amazing experience called life. And I want to be more and do less. So I think, so find those things that give you joy, anything that's going to add happiness to your life. It could be meditating one day, and it could be going for a run the following day. But it's the intention that's important. Are you in the moment while you're doing that activity, or is your thinking taking you somewhere else? Hopefully that answers the question.
Great. Theme number 2, the business case for empathy.
Ooh.
Anthony, you've worked with CFOs, chartered accountants, leaders who live and breathe numbers. When you're making the case for empathy and culture investment, what's the language that actually lands, and how do you translate being human into ROI, return on investment?
We're financial year end, right, for most companies in South Africa. So it's in that time of budgeting and, I can just see the CFOs and the accountants, they're just busy going through all their things. And so often what happens, if you think about a business, they speak in the language of the financial accountants. And if you look at the CEOs, most of them are probably chartered accountants, and that's the language that they speak, and that's how they see the world. And once again, here comes my visual bit here. it's teaching them to take off those pair of spectacles and putting on a new pair of spectacles. So when I think of return on investment, or ROI, I like to think about return on integrity. So when it comes to integrity, is that your walk is your talk and your talk is your walk. If we say we care about our people, do our people feel that they are cared for? When we got value posters or written on a poster somewhere on the wall, once again, can people see it in behavior? So it's being able to see through a new lens, new spectacles. And the thing is, I was thinking about this a bit earlier. It's almost like we take our people and we squeeze as much as we can out of them. And then at the end of the day, we hand them back to their families as empty vessels. And if you think about it, if I'm going to be a leader of integrity, is that what I want to be known as? As someone who squeezed the last little bit of juice and joy out of someone and then gives them back to their family. And the thing is, it's having those conversations with the leaders, with the CFOs, with the accountants, and reminding them that we will not be sick if we don't look after our people. Our people are the ones that feel the activities taking place in the business. It's the people on the ground, on the shop floor, having that interaction with the customer. And there's this saying, I'm not too sure who said it, but it's all about the client experience will never exceed the colleague experience. And this is so true, that if our people aren't happy, if they're not supported, the experience that other people are going to have of the organization is going to be a negative one. So it's having these conversations, and it's interesting. It's bringing back the human for the financial accountant, for the CFO, because they are human beings as well. It's reminding them of that. Like, if I was having a conversation with the CFO, a simple thing I would ask is, when you were growing up, when you were 5 or 6 years old, what did you want to be? And, most 5-year, 6-year-olds will probably say, I wanted to be a fireman, or I wanted to be a superhero. And then asking them, but then why did you lose that? Happened since you were 5 until now. You got stuck in the doing. You forgot about the being. And another thing I've noticed, and I've been around for quite a lot, I see it with the accountants, I see it with the CFOs, is they also have gotten stuck into this rut of this financial accounting. And I see that they don't enjoy it anymore. They do it for a reason. They attracted to, they subject matter experts, but they've also lost their passion. So how can we infuse life back into them and the work that they do as well? So once again, I'm making it personal. I'm speaking directly to the CFO, and that if it applies to him or her, why not bring it down to the rest of the organization and apply it to them as well? And so return on integrity. I think that's quite important. That's how I would bring it up. Not an easy conversation, but definitely a worthy conversation. I think that's important. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously, we're a mental health and well-being company, so we obviously want to try and make companies and the people in them more well, because to us, if you have happy employees or team members or whatever you want to call them, people will show up more as themselves. They want to contribute more, and they feel more, if you look after, it's like a family. Well, people don't like the family analogy, but if you keep your family strong and your circle strong, those people look after you, right? And not to defend the financial people, but I think there's idealism has been adapted into pragmatism, right? They're trying to save as much to grow the company so that the company succeeds, so that we can continue to employ people, and like you got to lubricate the machine, and like I don't think all of them are squeeze. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that's like squeeze every last drop out of somebody, but I think it's like my thing is to save money and to make it productive, and so my tough question is, right, there's an Anthony in these companies, and they're trying to promote holistic wellness and promote empathy and whatever. how do I, as a company and other wellness providers and other people in HR, how do we push internally for this? What's the secret sauce? How do we get them to see the way we see it? And
I think the only way they're going to see it, and this is quite important, is if you look at the senior executives, who do they interact with on a daily basis? It's obviously their executives or their heads. They can actually see how those people are interacting with each other. So the best thing, my first suggestion would be, let's do something for the team that's reporting into them. But how do we empower them to lead the process? I think this is always quite important. I've done it for so many years. I can teach you that's going to change your life. But if I don't empower you to take ownership or take agency, it's going to fall flat. So the solution is, who do they interact with? How can we bring them in to bring in their ownership, to bring their flavor? And then what impact are they already seeing on that group of people that they interact with? And surely if it's working on that particular group, and the thing is also what happens, you want it to work on that particular level in the organization. Why? Because they're going to be your spokespeople, because they're going to go back to their teams and they're going to see the benefits that they've experienced. And then hopefully they want to bring it into their teams. So it's that whole thing of working from the top down. However, I see this so often. You have to get the buy-in from the top, the leadership. Otherwise, it's going to fall. Because the middle team, they might be enthusiastic and they go for it. But when a new initiative needs to be run and we need money for it, if the leader's not involved and there's no ownership, maybe next year. We've sorted you guys out and hopefully that's good enough. And now you go and sort out your own teams and then they move on to the next thing. But I think we need to keep each other accountable. I think that's also quite important. This is quite important. Whenever you run an initiative, you keep everyone at the same level. However, that level needs to be accountable as well. And the leader needs to keep them accountable. Once again, that's not an easy conversation to have. Why? Because we've got targets and we've got sales figures that we need to look at, and we've got all of these spreadsheets. And you want us to pause now and to have these conversations? What's wrong with you? We've got customers that we need to serve. So not an easy conversation, but important to have.
Yeah, sure. What I took from that is making it personal, making them see in their circle, in their immediate environment, how it can make a difference. And that's tough. And getting also what you said around teaching somebody something and making it personal, empowering them to actually use it. That's also tough. Sure, a lot of great tidbits here.
If I can add, sorry, and this comes from experience. So one of the companies I worked for several years ago, their CEO was quite comfortable to sit in the executive office, in the C-suite floor, and would send out instructions and get feedback from their people, but never really get to the people on the floor, until someone had a really honest conversation with him and encouraged him to move away from the table. But often the table, and this is going directly to what we're talking about, often the table and often the doing has become a comfort zone for us because we feel safe. I don't know what's going to happen if I stop doing. I don't know what's going to happen when I move away from the table. And a lot of people are not comfortable to do that unless there's someone to support them in the process. He was supported through the process. He started having town halls, started interacting not just with people on the shop floor, but with customers as well. And the whole company just changed, did a whole 180 degrees. But it was just someone who was willing to say, do you know what, slow down, get away from your table, get away from your comfort zone. Let's think outside the box, So someone needs to be brave and courageous and say, hey, I'll have that conversation.
Sure, that's great advice, and that's tough. It's tough to implement, right? When you're so busy in the doing. I think we've talked about the top level, and my next question, I think, is almost perfectly placed. So the theme is scaling human connection, right?
Yes.
So talking about scale, right?
Mm.
You've built cultures and organizations spanning countries, languages, and vastly different roles, from head office to frontline teams. How do you scale human connection when you can't be in the room with everyone?
Yeah, this is so true. I think what happens is start with the core group, and I've done this in all of the organizations I worked with. Start with the core group. Find the people that are going to be your spokespeople, the people that have the loudest voices, the people that other people listen to, so that they can go and spread the word for you. But you co-partner with them, you co-create something with them. And I think this is quite important. You can't just join an organization or walk into a team and expect them to say, oh, who's this person? They want us to change. It's not going to happen. But get people that are already on the floor doing the work to create something with you. It's almost like they know what the flavor is like, the spices to use. You know, what are people, because people have got different palates and tastes. And so, you know, get the people who have the know-how. Once you've got those people, then what you do is I would run a lot of train the trainers. I would do a lot of communities of practice where we're rolling out something, but I'm getting the people who will be going to spread that message, speak the same language, share the same resources. Because once again, you know, whether it's an HR function or a learning and development department, you can't be everywhere. So use the people that you have, the influential people, upskill them, give them the know-how, and let them go do what they need to do. But then, you know, you keep each other accountable, you do regular check-ins, you see what's happening there. But then also, once again, because I'm co-creating with them, they're taking ownership of it. And they want it to be a success. And also what's important is when you have communities of practice and people supporting each other and people doing the training and sharing the successes and posting the photos, it encourages the others to do the same things and to learn from each other and even to learn from each other's mistakes. You know, oh, I did this, don't do it as well. And, you know, people just like, oh my word, I probably would have done the same mistake as well. But it's all relational. And this is quite important. Often people want to scale and they bring in technology, but technology at times can be cold and very clinical. But when you want to scale, you have to keep that human side because it's all about the relationship building. I remember many, many years ago, I worked for the Department of Education in the Eastern Cape, and we had to roll out an initiative with regards to HIV and AIDS in the high schools and upskilling, you know, the students with regards to their knowledge and know-how. The best way we were able to do it, and we were able to get to 6,000 high schools in the Eastern Cape, was to do a peer education program. So what we did is we identified the influential, we probably looked at about 10 or 15 grade 10 learners that were the most influential, had the, you know, the ears of their peers at that level. And we took them through the program and then they ran the sessions with their peers. So it's all, how can I take something that's up here, bring it down to the floor, have the people that can spread the message with you, but partake in it as well and create something together. So I think that's how I would scale something. You know, use the people and the resources that you already have. And it saves a lot of money as well. So yeah.
I'm glad this is recorded. I feel like I'm going to watch this later for my own reflection and training.
I will not charge you royalty. Yeah.
So the things I took from it that really stood out for me was this idea of like co-creation, getting people who are your champions in the organization, using different levels of approaches. The train the trainer was a really good suggestion. The peer-to-peer model that you use, especially in the education thing, that's really cool. And so these approaches can be used at all levels of the organization, which is a really good idea. And finding, what did you say, the special spice or their approach, that's also really cool. I really like that because there's a different heartbeat to every organization. And what I found is people don't buy into something that's been like imposed on them, that they don't feel that there's ownership in, and it's just like, oh, it's another thing to do, even if it's good for them. Yeah, exactly. But on that same vein, a lot of people will nod along and say, yes, I should do this. This is important for me. And they know internally that they should be doing stuff, but they don't. And that's where I get a little bit caught up sometimes, is the organization's like, yes, everyone's nodding along. Say again? Yes, let's hear it.
So it's quite simple. Those that are online, you've probably heard of Peter Block. He's written quite a few books, especially about community building. But he also has 6 conversations. And one of his conversations that you have with any community or organization that you're trying to implement something new in, it's called the dissent conversation. In rolling something out, do I have the conversation with the people and ask them, what are they struggling with? What do they think's not going to work? And what are their fears? And so often when people roll out initiatives, doesn't matter how you do it, it's positive, it's exciting, this is what you're going to get out of it. But we never talk about the concerns that people are having. And Peter Block also says the following: if my no is not respected, then my yes counts for nothing. So let's create a safe space. And this is where psychological safety comes in. Create a space where people are allowed to say no and things that they might be struggling with. Because now what happens when it's out in the air, I can address it. I can build in solutions for those particular issues, or ask them to co-create solutions with me to address, should that issue come up, this is the fix that we're going to have for that. And what happens now, they feel seen and they feel heard and they feel valued. And now they're willing to commit to whatever there is. And they know that their concerns have been addressed. So yeah, cool. So ladies and gentlemen, please take that as a tip. If my no is not respected, then my yes counts for nothing.
That's brilliant. And creating environments of psychological safety so that people feel that they can challenge the system and say no's, whether it's to internal things or an outside like intervention or initiative. But what I found is some organizations and individuals, if you say the word psychological safety, they're like, yeah, and other people are like, no, I don't, not over here. That's, we got work to do.
Yes.
So how do you get those types on board when they're like, no, work is like this, the environment's like that, and they bought so much into the idea that like the work environment is this like whole clinical thing and it has to fit their expectations because they grew up in the organization of being that way and they're conditioned to think a specific way. And now that they're at the top, they want to create the same system for the people who are coming into their organization. How do we challenge that?
I'm just immediately thinking, if you think about maybe your Gen Xers, grew up in that way where you go to work, you don't complain, you get your paycheck. Then you get the millennials coming in and they got a bit excited and started thinking outside the box. And now you've got Gen Zs, which are totally rebelling against the whole structure that the Gen Xers are quite comfortable with. I know a lot of people that are doing generational work. And when I say generational work, is helping the different generations understand each other and your perspectives and where you come from. And I think immediately I'm just getting the word humility. And when I mean humility, I'm saying whether you're Gen Z, millennial, baby boomer, you name it, being humble enough to realize I don't know everything. And am I curious enough to learn from someone else who might not be from the same generation that I'm in? And it's creating those opportunities for people to interact. So for example, if I was running an initiative at head office and I'm getting head office colleagues involved, first of all, I'll get people from different departments. I would randomize the process. But what I'll do is I'll also get people at different levels or perhaps even, and when I say different levels, not necessarily a tenure of work, but it could also be ages, and get them to work on a project together. And it's a beautiful thing. And I've seen, I'm sure if you look at TikTok and YouTube, you see a lot of these videos that people are creating where they're dancing with the older generation and, just making it fun and awkward. But I think psychological safety is creating a safe environment where people can mingle. You are allowed to talk to the person next to you. But often what happens is it's challenging people's behavior. So I'll get to my point now. So those people that are creating the environments that are stiff and rigid because they were used to it, they need to take a step back, and you need to ask them, take a step back, observe the environment. And when you were younger, would you have been happy with that environment? Would you have achieved your goals or your dreams if you had to work in an environment like that? And what happens is we're taking the person out of their environment and asking them to reflect. And now they're thinking that, and probably, hopefully, they'll say, no, that's not the environment I would like to work in. But so, okay, cool. Are you curious enough to maybe explore different environments? And that's all you do. You don't have to do anything. It's just asking that question, does this work for you? If it doesn't, are you open to other suggestions? Instead of, because often a lot of people, they will just ramble on and they will give ideas. No. First ask the person if they are open to learning or seeing something new. And I think that's quite important. And I've seen it before, especially the people that are sort of built in and into their structure and the way that they do things, and they're very stubborn, and this is the only way that I do it. But when you sort of like creak open that window and you let a little bit of fresh air or sunlight come in by asking that question, are you open to other ways of thinking? Then all of a sudden they're like, oh, this person's being generous with their time and willing to guide me maybe down this particular path. I might say no now, but I can see where their intentions are coming from. I will probably say yes in the future, whenever that happens. So once again, I think it's also how you approach it. So just as much as we're talking about empathy, the people coming with the message, the people coming with the solutions, whatever it might be, are you also walking with empathy? Are you someone that is approachable? Can people put up their hands? Are they willing to say they say in front of you? But if you come in there and you've got the proverbial whip and you're just going to hit everyone and there's no empathy coming out of you, people are going to say yes, but in the background, there's probably saying no as well. So a big thing that I do is I also talk about people. It's not just about what you talk about or what you teach. It's how you do it, but also how you show up. Are you someone that someone wants to listen to? So that's also quite important. My word, I can talk about this for hours.
No, it's great. I mean, everyone will take different tidbits from what you're saying. And the thing around curiosity, that really stuck with me because everyone will say, yes, they're curious and they have a lot of questions and they can think outside the box. But ask them, are you open to other people's ideas in that? That was a great reframing, because they're open to their own ideas, but are they open to other people's ideas? Can they sit with it in humility, with empathy, and listen and not judge and not think of, oh, I have to create some special smart response? Can I just sit with it and go, okay, well, let me think about that. I need to wrestle with it for a bit and come back to it.
And yet, don't do it because we have things to do. There's a checklist that we have to get to. We don't have time for this. But it's the oxygen so that we can get to those things that we need to do. So, yeah.
Anthony, across all the organizations you worked with, big corporates, fast growth businesses, and many different industries, where do you see the biggest gap in how we currently support staff mental health? What's missing?
So we've spoken about it before, but before I get to that particular word that we've spoken about, the biggest gap is this: anything that we're going to roll out when it comes to wellness, even mental or physical or emotional wellness, it becomes another initiative, becomes another rollout that HR or employee experience are going to handle. And so what happens is we've created this distance between me as a leader and this rollout that we have. This is where the ownership comes in, and bringing it down to the leader and helping them understand that it's part of your function. So this is where companies are struggling, and I've noticed this gap, and maybe where they get it wrong. The KPIs are measuring the wrong things. The KPIs are measuring all of the things that I'm supposed to do. And Shane, he will probably come back now, so I'll keep on talking. So what happens when it comes to KPIs? Welcome back. I kept this space going for you. Now I'm on
Thank
that
you.
side. So I think it's reworking our KPIs, the measurements that we've built in. So let me give you an example. So one of the companies I worked for is we had a whole revamp of our values, different associated road values, shows, but what we did is it would have fallen flat if we didn't build it into the key performance indicators, what you get measured on as a manager. So what would happen is we had a percentage of percent, now it's up to the organization, 15% was linked to how you are living out the values that we've just celebrated, and they're in your store and we're talking about it. It's on the radio, in the store, it's playing all of the time. You see the posters. We speak about it in the leadership training. So we brought it into the APIs, and now people realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm being measured on this as well. This is something that I need to focus on. So yeah, that's a gap that I see. This distance in the initiative, and it must be an H thing, or I hear this a lot. Oh, it's one of those fluffy things. It's got nothing to do with me. But when we take it and we put it, the ownership and the measurement back leadership, they can grab it. I think that's quite important. So yeah, just to add to that as well, I think also this is also quite important. Another issue that I see often when people don't take ownership of something, it's a fear of failure because I don't know how to roll it out. I don't know what's expected from me. So another thing that I've noticed is maybe head office will roll something out, but they don't give the guidelines or the support for the people that are going to be putting it in place on the shop floor or in the office space. So often when people see that, this is where you get the no's, this is where you get the rejection, this is where you get the pushback. Why? Because I just don't feel that I can do it. And if you think about most managers, they've been promoted into their role because there's operational excellence. But just because there's operational excellence doesn't mean there's emotional intelligence. And so these are things that we need to start bringing in. Do you see that someone in leadership development, in training, in HR, there's so much work that needs to be done because everything is interconnected. So yeah, so that's a gap, that distance, but also not having our people trained to be able to run it emotionally intelligent, if I can put it that way. Yeah.
That's the gap we see as well. And it's perfectly summed up. So like if you're in a software development company, you might be an exceptional software developer and you've been there for a couple of years and the company's growing, and now you're a senior software developer and now you have juniors that you have to manage. And they know on some level, oh, now I'm doing something for the first time, but it's they often don't know what they don't know, right? So how do you convince somebody that there's an area of development of skills, of competencies that you can learn that will benefit you personally and you professionally and also the entire organization, if it's something that they don't even know is something that could be beneficial to learn? So that's a challenge I hit quite often. And something else that you said really stuck with me, turning these wellness initiatives or campaigns or the approach that we need into KPIs, measurable things that get implemented, sounds really great and really smart framing and positioning. But how do we prevent them feeling like it's just something, another thing to do, another tick box that's just adding to my work? How do we prevent them feeling that way, or it actually really becoming like that?
I can give you two examples. So I think it's also quite important that in your organization, it depends on capacity and budget. But how do I bring in a mentorship program? And so what happens is when you got mentors and people that are behaving the way that you would like them to behave and living out the values, directly or indirectly through people observing them, the younger generations that are in those leadership roles can learn and gain skills from them and have this mentor, someone that's walking the journey with me. I think that's quite important. Let's have that person that walks with me. And if the organization is creating that mentorship program for me and I can participate in, oh my word, the company cares for me. They want me to be successful. Of course I want to stay here. Of course I want to work harder. So it's that image that we're creating. Our people are always watching. We think people aren't watching. They are watching everything that you're doing, but they're also watching everything you're not doing. So it's getting that mentorship process involved as well. And then also a big thing that I've noticed is to encourage the behavior we would like to see is you motivate and you celebrate those that are living them out already. So you have interviews with them. So for example, one of the companies I worked for, there was a handful of organization managers in a particular role or particular level that we identified that were living out the values that we were measuring them on. So we would do interviews with them, videos, and where did you start organization? Where are you now? What did you learn? What would you like to share with everyone else? And now what happens? Now we're celebrating these champions, and the other manager's like, oh my word, that's actually quite cool. And I know that person, and I know where they started in the organization. And if they can do it, I can probably do it as well. And hey, hopefully I might get interviewed as well. So it's that constructive reinforcement, focusing on the positive, celebrating them, but also guiding people through the process so that they know that they can get there as well. So you can have the best program and initiatives, but do you have the daily walks with people and the guidelines and the conversation template, and just give them the toolkit? This is quite important. They're going to go on this long journey. Have you given them the picnic basket with everything that they need? So maybe that's a terminology people can walk away with, the picnic basket. So important.
Picnic basket of tools and competencies that they need and systems that they need so their organization can thrive.
Waters in there and the snacks that they need are in there. Why? Because we want them to be on the journey and not just do what's required. So yeah.
You should make a poster. That can be one of the posters that they put up. No, that's great. I love it. And I think organizations will, small, medium, large, hopefully choose and create systems that work for them. Like the mentorship idea, is great if you can get that implemented. But some organization might be like, nah, that's not really our style. So it's working with them to kind of find what suits them. And have you found resistance at times when you sort of say like, hey, this is an idea or a suggestion or approach that we could take, that I've seen work, that I think could work here, and they're like stone wall, or what do they call it, stone wall you? How do you deal with that?
I've done quite a bit of work on this, and I've seen this and things that I've learned in the past as well. I've come to see resistance as part of the learning process. And someone might say no now, but you've planted that seed. But then am I keeping that relationship going? And then I've seen it, like one of the companies I worked for. When I first got there was this initiative that I wanted to run. Planted the seed. It was immediate, no, it's not going to work here. You also haven't been here long enough. Or I've heard this one, you don't have enough airtime because I haven't been working there long enough, so no one's going to listen to me. Strangely enough, a year and a half later, someone knocked on my door and said, hey, and there's this initiative that we are thinking of running, and because we've identified the need, do you think you can help us? Yeah. Well, I don't remind them of what I told them a year and a half ago, because they are excited about it now. It's like, cool, let's work together. And we've got the tools, and they used it, so you've planted the seed. They might not remember that you've planted it, but you've planted it. And this is quite important, the plant will grow when the soil is ready. And so what happens is often we want to force the fertilizer soil and bring in the water and the oxygen and all of the nutrients and the fertilizer. But hey, if that seed doesn't want to grow, or the soil is not ready to help it germinate, it's just not going to work. So it's all about timing. And once again, people are only going to change when they see the change and something's happened, or that awareness has created. Now, having said that, we can't always wait for awareness to happen, because it might never happen. So it's having those open conversations. It's having those communities of practice. And let me give you an example. A community of practice is where you have an online session with managers from all over the country at different levels, and you might have a topic on dealing with someone who is going through a emotionally challenging time, and you get people that speak. Now, what happens is there's going to be people that are going to share, and some people that are immediately going to get what we're trying to say in that session. But you're going to get other people that will walk away, and a couple of months later, something happens to them, and they remember, wait a minute, I remember we had this conversation. Oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. And then it awakens something up in them. It's only when is ready, but we need to have those sessions. We need to have those conversations to keep it alive, so that we give more opportunities for awareness to spark up. I think that's important. Because if you don't talk, if you don't chat, if you don't share the information, like I said earlier, the awareness might not happen at all. So, yeah.
So you got to create that fertile ground,
Yes.
so that the seed can thrive and grow. And the timing is so important. The right message at the wrong time just doesn't land.
Yes.
But that can be quite frustrating, right? Because, and well done in being humble, and, when the person knocked on your door, I told you so. It would have been a great moment for that. But that obviously would have landed wrong. But well done. We're almost out of time, so I want to ask you one last question, Anthony. When you think about 2026, not just for your organization, but for South African businesses more broadly, what's one shift you most want to see? What would success look like?
What would success look like? I think helping leaders to realize that it's not just reacting to situations, but being more intentional. But intention requires my presence. So am I in the room? Am I in that meeting? Am I actually there? And another thing for me is I want organizations to be profitable because it helps with job creation and the communities around them. But I also want them to be deeply human. And I think we've forgotten how to do that. So there's a lot of work that we can do to help organizations to bring back the being of the human and the humanity that we all have. It's somewhere there. We just need to help them find it again. Let's go digging.
Go digging. Help them build the self-awareness needed to identify in themselves that there's something worth doing.
Yeah.
And then carry it across throughout their organization. That's what I'm taking from it.
And one last thing. What sort of work environment would you like your kids to work in? And when you ask that sort of question, it makes it personal, and that makes them think about the work environment they are creating, and like they go, ooh, maybe there's something I need to change. So it's asking those deeply personal questions to make people think. Cool.
That's a great takeaway. Anthony, thank you very much for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure. There's been so many nuggets of wisdom that you've bestowed upon us. The time just absolutely flew by. I can't believe it. So thank you to everyone for attending. I'm sure you got a lot out of it, just like I did. Please feel free to reach out to Anthony. I'm sure he'd be more than happy. I'm telling you that he'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you send him on LinkedIn, because he's such a nice guy. And if you'd love to learn more about what Anthony does and what we do, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to engage with you further. Once again, thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you, Anthony.
Awesome. Thank you.